Hello everyone, today is 30th of May, now it's 20 past 1, middle of the day by Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is first part of today's update in which I will show all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second part will be published on my Patreon page, and if you are interested, please consider to subscribe. Link is under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And by the way, before I start with the news, let me share with you this information. Yesterday I was in Moscow and I come back from Moscow late, quite late, but still during the night time, local time, I uploaded this video, a new episode of headlines on my YouTube and Rumble channels. And well, if you have not seen it and if you are interested in that exhibition of trophy equipment that is taking place in Moscow for months now, please check that video, you may find it interesting. So yes, that's been said, let's go through some news. There was no reports about some crucial changes on line of contact, therefore I'm gonna skip them up today, and I will start with this report from Vzglyad News paper that during the nighttime Russian air defense system shut down 8 US-made ATACMS missiles and also 8 drones that were launched formally by Kiev regime, in reality by NATO forces that are deployed into Ukraine towards Crimea. Some of their missiles were destroyed over the Chorное More, over the Black Sea, some of the missiles over the Azov Sea, missiles and drones, and also according to some reports, several naval drones of Kiev regime, formerly Kiev regime, was also destroyed by Russian militaries. And we have RIA Novosti's report here that during the NATO attack on Kerch bridge, I believe, in direction of Kerch, basically, where one of the entrance on the Crimean bridge is located, debris of intercepted missiles fell down on 2 ferries, one for transporting automobiles and another one to transport railway wagons. Both ferries were damaged, but no reports about casualties among civilians on the ferries or crew members. So it was an attempt to strike, in my personal opinion, by the way, of course, it was an attempt to strike Crimean bridge, I guess. RIA Novosti, of course, Russian Defense Ministry, being quite conservative institution, don't really share much information, just some basics. RIA Novosti's report that during the nighttime Russian armed forces conducted 5 strikes on one of the Ukrainian airfields in Starokonstantinov, which is Khmelnytsky region of Kiev-controlled territory. And according to reports, this airfield is chosen by NATO to deploy F-16, US-made F-16 fighter bombers. During the such strikes, according to reports in Russian segment of internet, Russian armed forces are using Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. So I guess 5 strikes mean that well, this airfield received some significant, very significant damage. And if NATO was planning to deploy F-16s in this airfield, probably they will have to reconsider, or they will need additional several weeks at least before they will rebuild whatever was destroyed, before they will start deploying those F-16s. Also, RIA Novosti's report about quite controversial news, and I will recommend to take this information with a pinch of salt, but because many media outlets here in Russia reported about it, I'm sharing this information with you, which is that, well, I transferred, to be more precise, translated. Ukrainian armed forces are firing Storm Shadow missiles at the Russia with London's permission, said Yuri Sak, advisor to Minister of Strategic Industries of Ukraine, in an interview with the Bloomberg. So this Yuri Sak, advisor to the minister in Ukraine, stated that Kiev regime, formerly Kiev regime, in reality we all know that these long-range weapon systems are operated by NATO forces. In case of Storm Shadows, it's a British military. And well, according to this report, Kiev regime is already using Western long-range weapon systems to strike deep inside Russian territory, including Storm Shadow cruise missiles, and well, I checked, I tried to find out some more about this topic, but there was no reports about it in Russian media. At least I didn't find anything. And that's why I recommend to take this information with a pinch of salt, because maybe this is just a testing of the ground from a Western ruling class. They used Bloomberg, their propaganda outlet, to share this, to make this first step, to share this information and see reaction in Moscow, reaction in the public here in Russia, or maybe in the West also, because after all, topic is extremely vital, and it does raises questions why this information was shared with Bloomberg by some advisor of some irrelevant ministry of the Kiev regime. Not the defense minister, not the head of regime itself, or his administration, not Ukraine's some so-called secret services, terrorist organizations in reality, but advisor of a minister of strategic industries of Ukraine. Civilian is sharing this information. Very strange, very strange. But unfortunately, even though it is questionable that Storm Shadows or Scalp EGs or ATACMS long-range missiles being used to strike deep inside Russian territory in internationally recognized borders, it is obvious and factual that Kiev regime is using British-made drones to conduct strikes deep inside Russian territory. And just yesterday, I believe it was yesterday or day before, I shared with you this information about intercepted British-Portuguese drone that was intercepted over the Armavir, which was flying in direction of this over-the-horizon detection radar system of Russian Federation, Voronezh DM, which is already been damaged during the previous strikes. At least that's, what we can judge according to those photos that were circulating on internet, and I shared that information in previous updates on my Telegram also. So it is factual that Western long-range weapon systems already being used to strike deep inside Russian territory. Just I'm questioning ATACMS and Scalp EGs or Storm Shadows, but unfortunately it's only a matter of days, maximum weeks at this point, and most likely NATO will start. NATO troops in Ukraine will start launching those long-range weapon systems to strike in internationally recognized borders of the Russian Federation. The question is, how will Moscow respond on that? Because I guess Moscow will not really have any other option but to respond with heavy-handedly on such a level of escalation from the NATO and NATO member states. And on this topic, by the way, I just mentioned this long-range over-the-horizon detection radar system of Russia that was damaged, according to reports that we have, as a result of these long-range strikes by formerly Kiev regime, in reality not NATO, and to distance themselves from these terrorist attacks, from these attacks on Russian nuclear triad and Russian nuclear deterrence. I guess Pentagon, CIA, White House, maybe all of them combined, ordered Washington Post to come up with an article according to which alleged Ukrainian attacks on Russian nuclear radars are unnerving US. This is all fog, by the way. This is all fog, attempt to distract society's attention. Reports that Ukraine has attacked Russia's early ballistic missile warning stations are unnerving the country's American backers, according to Washington Post posted this article on Wednesday. Last week, Ukrainian sources claimed that two Operation had been carried out against Russian long-range facilities designed to detect intercontinental ballistic missile launches. The Russian Defense Ministry did not comment on their claim. Footage shared online suggests that at least one of their attacks caused damage. In a statement on Saturday, Russian Senator Dmitry Rogozin, who was also Vice Prime Minister and the head of Roscosmos in past years, said that Moscow should hold the US responsible for these attacks if they were carried out by Ukraine. Washington has hired a reckless bandit who is trying to damage a key element of our system of strategic nuclear force combat control, Rogozin stated. A US official told the Washington Post that Washington was concerned with the news since Russia could perceive its deterrent capabilities being targeted. How else Russia gonna receive this information? How else? Speaking on the conditions of anonymity, the source added, these sites have not been involved in supporting Russia's war against Ukraine. The two facilities that apparently were attacked are over-the-horizon radar sites near Armavir, Krasnodar region, and Orsk, Orenburg region. The latter monitors over the Middle East and China, aerospace of the Middle East and China. So these radars, by the way, are not looking over the Ukraine. They don't even see space over the Ukraine because they are over the horizon radars, detection stations, and they are directed towards southeast. And this is clearly a U.S. terrorist attack on a Russian nuclear deterrence system, undoubtedly, and Rogozin said that situation should be addressed, and I also believe that Moscow should retaliate immediately. Once this terrorist attack happened, Moscow should retaliate immediately with whatever means necessary. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. I'm finding more and more difficult to understand this desire of the Moscow to avoid escalation with the NATO. But at some point, no matter how much leadership of Russia wants to avoid confronting NATO, at some point they will have no other option but to act, but to retaliate. And if these attacks on radars were not enough, then once NATO will launch long-range missiles deep inside Russian territory in internationally recognized borders, and once those missiles, long-range missiles and drones of NATO will start killing Russian militaries and Russian civilians all around central and southern Russia, I guess eventually Moscow will realize that this tactic of cautious approach is not working. Unfortunately, it's just factual that this approach of cautiousness is not working. At this point, I really don't think Western ruling class will even listen to any warnings from Russia. They just simply don't care, because there was too many warnings, too many red lines, and I don't think Western ruling class is taking seriously warnings from Russian side at this point. I mean, I really don't. This is unfortunate reality, and I can understand that Russian leadership wants to avoid possible nuclear escalation with the NATO. I can understand that, but Western ruling class is determined to provoke next level of escalation, and they will increase strikes on Russia until Moscow will react. And sooner this reaction will happen, better, because it will deter it's only chance that this reaction, this is only chance we have to deter basically Western ruling class. Very strong message has to be sent to, you know, let them know in the to the people that are in charge of the collective West that well, Moscow had enough of it, and now it's Moscow's turn to act. Mark my word, by the way, it's only a matter of days or weeks, and unfortunately those Storm Shadow missiles, Scalp-PG missiles, ATACMS, and God knows what else NATO has delivered to Kyiv regime will start targeting deep inside Russian territory with internationally recognized borders, or borders before 2014. Otherwise, of course, new regions of the Russian Federation are also part of Russia, just not recognized internationally yet by majority of the countries. Anyways, man, every other day we are getting closer to some next level of escalation, and I don't think there is any chances now left to prevent this escalation. Izvestia is reporting that Prime Minister of UK, Rishi Sunak, basically give authorization to the regime to use whatever weapon systems they want, including British ones, to strike deep inside Russian territory. Washington is considering to also authorize the regime to use US weapon systems to strike deep inside Russian territory. Poland, Finland, Czech Republic, so many countries at this point made these statements that they are authorizing the regime to use Western weapons to strike deep inside Russian territory, that it's just inevitable that this will happen. This is not random stuff, isn't it? And I said from very beginning of this new wave of propaganda of the West that they are preparing ground to start targeting deep inside Russia, and unfortunately that's exactly what is going to happen. Even Germany, by the way, according to article in Politico, even Chancellor of Germany, who was just like 2 days ago opposing strikes deep inside Russian territory, has made a U-turn basically, and now he is all in support of strikes inside Russia. Probably ambassador of US in Germany called to the Scholz and said that well, time for games are up, and now Germany should act accordingly with the orders of the Washington. And I guess if Scholz is saying that, you know what, let's strike deep inside Russia, then today, tomorrow, or I mean in upcoming days, probably we will receive information that Scholz is approving deliveries of long-range Taurus missiles to Ukraine also. And of course, as British Storm Shadows are operated by British military personnel, and French Scalp-PGs are operated by French military personnel, or US ATACMS by US military personnel, these German Taurus weapon systems will be operated by German military personnel also. This is a war. This is a war against Russia, by the way, that is waged by NATO. This is not even proxy war no more. This is NATO's war against Russia. It's just undeclared. It's just officially undeclared. But it's NATO is waging war on Russia. That's what it is. And I don't know. I wonder when Moscow will start retaliating, and on what scale. That's the only question I have at this point, because well, despite all the attempts from Moscow to de-escalate, this is clearly not working, isn't it? This cautious approach is clearly not working, and at some point we will see Russian retaliation, because I don't think Moscow can ignore these developments. I don't think Moscow can ignore strikes deep inside Russian territory by these NATO weapon systems on all their cities and settlements in central and southern Russia. and range of those weapon systems are long enough to reach even Voronezh, by the way, even Moscow in some circumstances. For example, according to military experts, if Storm Shadow and Scalp-G cruise missiles will undergo some modernization, it will not take too much, but those missiles will in that case will have about 500-kilometer range, not 300. That was declared, but about 500. It depends from which altitude those missiles are launched, with what speed, and some modifications in those missiles itself. RIA Novosti is reporting that Macron, by the way, president of France, is escalating with Moscow again, and well, he wants now a coalition to be formed of EU states, EU member states, to send instructors to Ukraine. Okay, it's I mean, at this point I don't think anybody really pays any attention to Macron or the crazy statements that he made. We all know that it's only a matter of time, and NATO military personnel will openly be deployed into Ukraine. Only question is, will they stay just in Western Ukraine, or will they move out of Western Ukraine towards, eastwards, southern Ukraine, northern Ukraine? That's the only question. Important question, because probably Russian reaction will be deterred based on deployment of areas of deployment of NATO troops. In some sense, not just that, but that will be also taken in consideration by Moscow, I guess. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that Ukrainian tankers, by the way, as I mentioned yesterday in headlines, from that exposition of the trophy weapons, Ukrainian tankers are complaining about Abrams tanks. Let's go through this news. Main battle tanks the US has provided to Ukraine have inadequate armor and munition for the modern battlefield. Their operators have admitted to CNN, operators of these tanks, complaining about being priority targets for Russian drones. US President Joe Biden announced the delivery of 31 Abrams tanks to Kyiv in January 2023, reportedly as a way to pressure other NATO countries to send the German-made Leopards in larger numbers. And it worked, by the way. Hundreds of Leopards, Leopard 1s, Leopard 2s were sent to Kyiv regime at this point. These tanks, by the way, arrived too late for the last year's summer offensive that Kyiv regime conducted. These not German, but US tanks, Abrams tanks. But they entered battle in February. Russian forces have documented 8 Abrams kills so far. At least 8, maybe some more. Just this morning I shared this video, by the way. According to reports, this is another Abrams tank that was destroyed by Russian drone. But I cannot tell you this is 9th one, 10th one, or who's counting at this point, man. Anyways, let's continue. And one of the wrecked tank of US was even towed to Moscow as a trophy. And in my yesterday's video, in my yesterday's episode of Headlines, I filmed that Abrams tank also, that is deployed on displays in that exhibition. And then, quote, by the way, its armor is not sufficient. One soldier from Ukraine's 47th Mechanized Brigade stationed in Donbass told CNN, the first Western channel, to observe the Abrams on the Ukrainian battlefield. It does not protect the crew. for real today this is the war of drones. So now when the tank rolls out, they always try to hit them, said the soldier identified only by the call sign Joker. Without defense, the crew does not survive on the battlefield, said his teammate Dnipro. The 47th Mechanized Brigade of Kiev regime is the only Ukrainian unit operating the US-made tanks. The brigade is now working on the field modifications of the M1A1, including mounting boxes of reactive armor, as witnessed by CNN, as well as frames that the Ukrainians previously derided as cop cages when employed by Russian forces. And quite interesting, isn't it? Quite interesting and somewhat strange that CNN, by the way, this propaganda outlet of Pentagon and CIA, is mocking M1A1 Abrams tanks, US Abrams tanks. And question is why? Why this is happening? And the accent in the article is on protection. So CNN is trying, in my personal opinion, to lay down ground for deployment of more advanced Abrams tanks to Kiev regime. That's what is going on, by the way, because I would expect any sort of criticism of Abrams. But to say that Abrams is not heavily protected, not heavily armored, I mean, this is too crazy, by the way. Abrams is one of the most armored tanks in the world. Maybe just British Challenger 2 can compete with armor with Abrams. That's why these tanks are extremely heavy. That's why these tanks are extremely heavy, because I mean they have too much armor. And after all, no armor gonna save you from a direct artillery hit or a drone strike in vulnerable areas, isn't it? Those drones are not penetrating these tanks in frontal armor of the turret. They are targeting them from the back, from the side. They are exploiting vulnerabilities of these tanks, as they should. So, by the way, this article, in my personal opinion, clearly is beginning of another wave of the propaganda in the West, in the US in this particular case, to prepare ground for transfer of more Abrams tanks to Kiev regime, and their more advanced ones. Not the latest one, of course, but there's so many different type of Abrams were made since the production of these tanks started that Pentagon definitely has from what to choose. So just give it a time, like week or two, and probably we will see more and more articles and calls for Pentagon, for Washington, to transfer more and more MBT's main battle tanks to Kiev regime, and that's exactly what is going to happen. That's why CNN come up with this information. Let's see. RT is reporting that Russia could scrap restrictions on the missile deployment, according to Lavrov. And by the way, this is what is also important, in my opinion, is that this topic become relevant now because European NATO member states transferred basically all Leopard 2s and Leopard 1s they could. They might find some another dozen or two, but they don't have any more resources to transfer those Leopards, and that's why Abrams being produced in thousands is the next. That's why this article come up, and that's why we will see now wave in the Western propaganda media to basically pay the ground for deliveries of the tens and possibly hundreds of US-made Abrams tanks into the battlefield. That's what is going on. RT is reporting that Russia could scrap restrictions on missile deployment, according to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Russia will strengthen its nuclear arsenal and drop its self-imposed restrictions on missiles if the US deploys launchers to Europe or Asia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has stated. And most likely that's exactly what is going to happen, because no way Washington will listen to any Russian warnings. I mean, it's just not happening. We all know this, and Washington has plans to deploy its ballistic weapon systems, ballistic missiles into Asia Pacific to threaten China mainly, and to Europe to threaten Russia, and they will go ahead with these plans. No warning from Moscow gonna stop them. It's just too clear. Also, by the way, RT's report that Trump tells donors that he'd bomb Moscow and Beijing, according to unnamed sources of the Washington Post. Well, let's go through this news also. Former US President and current Republican candidate Donald Trump has told campaign donors that he would have bombed Moscow and Beijing if they'd attacked Ukraine and Taiwan, respectively, on his watch. The Washington Post reported on Tuesday, citing sources. So yes, how are you gonna comment this, man? I don't know. According to numerous donors, advisors, and other people close to Trump, the former president has ramped up his fundraising campaign rhetoric ahead of his likely rematch with the incumbent Joe Biden in the upcoming November elections. Trump is regularly addresses foreign policy topics at such events, and reportedly claimed that he would have bombed the Russian capital in response to Ukraine campaign, and prescribed the same response to hypothetical Chinese move to assert its sovereignty over the Taiwan. These remarks surprised, according to Washington Post, his donors that were present during that speech. Well, I don't know, man, how to comment on this. Trump was bragging about how he gonna play positive role to de-escalate in current conflicts that are going on in this world, including into Ukraine, but maybe he is too dependent now on U.S. military-industrial complex, U.S. deep state, and therefore probably we will no longer hear from him any statements about de-escalation. Probably he will go ahead and start talking exactly in this manner, that he will take out, he will bomb them and everyone. That will make happy deep state of US, of course, and military industrial complex. But topic is extremely dangerous, because targeting Russian capital, attack on Russian capital from other country, from nuclear country, by the way, is of course a direct way towards World War III. So what Trump was talking about, if Washington Post is not lying at all, maybe Washington Post just fabricated this article. It is also a possibility, isn't it? But well, we are living in crazy times, by the way, and anything is possible at this point. Nothing possibly can surprise us. RBK news agency is reporting that Washington Post, or Wall Street Journal, learned that Trump had some talks with Elon Musk, founder and CEO of Tesla, SpaceX, and a number of other companies. And maybe Musk will become consultant for Trump if he will win in presidential elections. Who knows? Lately, Elon Musk was quite often making some political statements, some statements about some geopolitical matters, and maybe he has some ambition to become politician at some point in the future and to start his political career. Being consultant for president of US is, of course, effective way. to be frank. So let's see. Anything is possible, by the way. RIA Novosti's report that Moldovan opposition is demanding from head of State Department of US Blinken to flee Moldova. Moldovan opposition is not happy because of the visit of the Blinken into Moldova, because they know perfectly well whenever US is increasing its presence, that area, that country, region should get prepared for devastation. And Moldova definitely on the path towards total disaster because of this increased influence and presence of the collective West in general, and influence of the Western ruling class. And well, I can understand why local opposition is not happy. They want to save their country, but I don't think they will be able to. I'm quite sure it's only a matter of several years and Moldova as a state will disappear from political map. It will undergo full-scale disintegration. RT is reporting that Moscow reacts to US trade embargo warning, and yes, by the way, US is considering to impose full-scale trade embargo on Russia, and most likely Washington will not ban any imports to US, any imports of anything from Russia to US, but of course White House, Washington will use its influence over the other countries to act the same way, and collective West in general probably at some point will impose trade embargo on Russia. It's not gonna be easy because there are so many areas where Western world is dependent on Russia on extreme levels, but they can try because they don't care about their own ordinary citizens in the West. I mean, Western ruling class will most likely go ahead with such a decision without any care for their own fellow citizens, and well, it will devastate world economy. It will not break Russian economy, but it will have crucial influence on the world economy, including economy of their collective West, that's for sure. But anyway, let's go through this news. A potential US trade embargo on Russia would not break the country's economy, but would severely harm international commerce. Moscow's ambassador to Washington, Anatoly Antonov, has stated, speaking at the event organized by the Brookings Institute in Washington on Tuesday. The White House Deputy National Security Advisor for International Economics, Dalip Singh, was asked if the US should put tariffs on everything Russia exports as a part of sanctions over the Ukraine conflict. And then, quote, the history of trade embargoes is not a great one, but to the extent the Russia is transforming its economy entirely into a factory for the war machine. And we are going to get to the point where de facto that's where we end up. Singh, who has been described by some media outlets as the architect of Russian sanctions, stated so. Okay, by the way, try it. What can I say? And this is it for this relatively short update. Hopefully you will find it somewhat interesting, informative, useful, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. More likes and comments are only way we can somehow influence algorithm and maybe to increase chances for the channel to reach wider audience. And finally, if you like this channel, if you like my work, you can support with small donations through PayPal, Boosty, or by subscribing to my Patreon page. All the links are under this video description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for the first part. I'll start now recording second part for Patreon. Have a great day and take care.